Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the fourth episode of The Spin Bin, the show where mainstream propaganda is rerun and unspun. So, we've had a break for a couple of weeks, but we're back with an election special. And as most people will know, both myself and Suzanne ran as independent candidates in the local elections. And although we didn't get elected, we did pretty well. And so, the spin machine that is the corporate media had to kick into overdrive in their attempts to discredit us. So I'll bring in Suzanne first. Before we get into the spin, hey Suzanne.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. I was just saying there, before we get into the spin, we would just like to thank everybody who was involved and helped us throughout our campaign, supported us, whether that was financially or whether that was helping us on the ground, delivering leaflets, designing leaflets. There was loads involved, and we literally couldn't have done it without everyone's help. So thanks so much. Okay, so first of all, we'll briefly chat about the campaign. We'll let people know how we did. I'm going to bring up the first count. Suzanne was in the Blanchardstown Mulhuddard LEA, and there were 15 candidates, 5 to be elected. And here are the results after the first count. We'll just show the first count, and then we'll kind of summarise what happened after that. So here you are, Suzanne, in 10th position, with 388 first preference votes, which is not very bad considering you were, 10 days most out knocking on doors. And each of those days you were out for, an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours a day.
I wasn't even out for 10 days. I had about 10 days total, and the first 3 days were putting up posters. And then a lot of the days were leafleting. I still have 6 boxes of leaflets left. Couldn't manage to get them out. I had some help, but not a lot. And I knocked on doors for maybe 3 or 4 days. Only 6,000 people came out and voted in Blanchardstown. So 388 at first glance may not sound like a lot. But when you consider that the highest, I can't actually see that there without my glasses, but I think the highest...
685.
685. So I was 300 off the highest number of votes, which was an incumbent councillor. Nobody reached the quota, which was over 1,000. And I'm very happy with my result because I was only out, as I said, for a few days. And that's over 5% of 6%, 6.4% of people decided that they would vote number one for me.
That's really fantastic. I mean, imagine we'd managed to put in a couple more weeks' work out in the doors, knocking on doors, and I didn't realize how important it is to actually knock on doors, especially knock on doors with people who might be well known in the area. That's what all the mainstream parties do. We didn't do a lot of that, but we know we've learned these tricks now, and I imagine what sort of vote we could have got if we had known some of these tricks and had more time.
Yeah. I mean, some people actually don't want you knocking on their doors. They have signs saying no political callers, that kind of thing. But most people do want you to knock on their door. And one lady in particular, I knocked on hers, and she said she was going to vote for me on that basis alone. That if I had left a leaflet, she wouldn't have voted for me. And I think most people do appreciate when you knock on the door. You make that face-to-face connection.
Absolutely, yeah. I got a lot of that as well. So just looking very briefly here, as I say, you're in 10th position after the first count. You're ahead of the Social Democrats. You're ahead of one of the Sinn Féiners. You're ahead of a non-party, whatever that name is there. You're ahead of Andy Heasman, quite a way ahead of Andy Heasman, and the Green Party. So well done. And you actually finished in 7th position, I think. Isn't that right? With 5 seats up for grabs.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I think so. I'm not sure, but I think that lady Lorna Nolan is ahead of me there. I think on transfers she ended up behind me, and I know she was a sitting Fianna Fáil councillor. So so it was good to. The Social Democrats guy kept going around covering up my posters with his posters, so I was very happy to have beaten him, not least because the Social Democrats are come out with crazy things altogether. Like I had white privilege during the famine,
and not necessarily himself. I'm sure, possibly somebody working for him. I'd imagine maybe more so.
Well, the party, yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean. Like I know what you mean. But
yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of that. I mean, I was in the Garda station today to report. I had a total of, how many was it? I had a total of 60 posters that I put up,
Mm.
and 24 of them were taken or stolen along the way, mostly from outside the Castlebar area, like in the more rural areas. I'll bring up my results here. Just again, first count. Here we go. So this is not in order, but this is the first count. Two people were elected, had reached the quota after the first count. Michael Kilcoyne, independent, he's always thereabouts. And Ger Deer, Fine Gael, we've plenty to chat about with Ger Deer in this episode of the Spin Bin. But as things stood here, there were 19 candidates and 7 seats up for grabs, and I was in the 7th position. I got, where am I here? I'm 899 first preference votes. So I was actually ahead of, it was Harry Barrett who's at the top there, who actually got in ahead of me. He had 743 first preference votes. So unfortunately, I didn't transfer as well as I hoped and as well as people were telling me I would. But yeah, I mean, we give it a good shot, I think.
Hmm. Did this man Jerry Loftus, did he get elected?
No,
No.
independent as well.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think if you hadn't been sabotaged maybe 3 days out from the election,
Hmm.
by the press, you would have gotten over the line. But that's a phenomenal result you got there as it stands. It shows the gains we're making. The establishment likes to downplay that, but they know full well that um, we've we've done really well here when you consider the percentages and um, for a first try. It's very good.
Yeah, first campaign as independents with no party support, with nobody on our makeshift teams with any experience in politics or anything like that. We were just all
Mm.
thrown together. So yeah, and let's talk about, as you mentioned there, some of the dirty tricks. So a couple of days, it was the Sunday before the election. We just happened to be in Castlebar, and we came across the Fine Gael propaganda tour was in town.
Mm.
Some of the clip we've already uploaded some of the clips with you speaking with former Taoiseach Enda Kenny and also with RTE and Virgin Media reporters on the day. Now that was reported in the Mayo News, one of our local papers here, and I just picked out two snippets from that paper. Now this came out I think on the Tuesday before the election on a Friday. So here's the first bit. Taoiseach Harris was forced to abandon a scheduled press conference after he was heckled by members of the Burke family and local election candidate Stephen Kerr during a visit to Castlebar. That's the first thing. So I didn't heckle. I never even, well, I definitely didn't engage the Taoiseach. I don't even know if I saw him on the day. Like, there was so many other people around him. And we were engaged with other people, like, for example, who I just mentioned a minute ago, the former Taoiseach and the press and whatnot. And then there's this snippet here. This is Councillor Ger Deer lashed out at election rival Stephen Kerr, describing his behaviour as pure thuggery. Mr. Kerr, who runs the Irish Inquiry website, is running for Mayo County Council in the Castlebar local electoral area as an independent. The Brafe native, who has been an outspoken critic of the government's migration policy, filmed Simon Harris and Minister McEntee during their visit to Castlebar. No, I mean, again, not true. Didn't see the Taoiseach Simon Harris. And I mean, to quote this, one of my rivals, my political rivals, as saying my behaviour was pure thuggery and never asked me for a comment is just scandalous. And there'll be more coming with that. Obviously, Suzanne knows that we've been engaging with a legal team over this, and we're going to just see how to proceed with that. But I mean, that was just a couple of days before the election,
Yeah.
So
And I won't go into the details now, but a 42-minute phone call with the journalist who wrote the article was very elucidating.
yes, absolutely, it was. You've told me plenty about that, and in time we will divulge some of that. Um, for the moment, though, we'll leave that there because there may very well be a legal case pending.
Mhm.
Um, so here's what actually happened. Here's the only interaction. I mean, people have seen a couple of the clips, your interactions on the day with the former Taoiseach and with the press. The only interaction I had was when I saw Minister for Justice and Maria Walsh, MEP candidate, walking down, and I decided I'd go up and film them. I was hoping to get an opportunity to ask them something, but the Burkes were there and they were doing their thing and they were asking questions, and there was no way for me to get in and ask a question, so I just let it go. I didn't bother trying to get in. So let me just play it here, and this is literally my only interaction with the Minister for Justice. Here's me walking up to them at Dunn Stores here. I can see them all walking towards me.
What about number? What about you number? Every year in Manchester, because he won't accept transgender. This is the Minister for Justice. Nothing to say about Balsami number.
Are you going to stop all the undocumented people coming into this country?
Because he won't give up his...
Just watch yourself on the curb there. We don't hurt you. There we go.
She's running away today.
Miss McEntee.
She's come to Castlebar today to be mute. To have nothing to say.
To the voters, nothing to say.
She's come to Castlebar. She's come to Castlebar to tell us she has nothing to say.
She's looking for her votes. Looking for her candidate votes.
Yes.
Real votes. Looking for her votes.
Anything to say about you? Running away. Running away. Silent. Nothing to say about the teacher from
You're not welcome in Castlebar, Minister.
In prison for over a year because you wouldn't accept transgender.
So what did you say, Helen?
Yeah, you're getting a big salary. A really big salary.
So there you go. There was a lot of shouting there from other people, nothing to do with me. I asked one question.
Or me.
Are you, Suzanne? But yeah, you weren't mentioned in this article.
No.
But this was my alleged pure thuggery. My behaviour, pure thuggery. Now I asked, what are you going to do with all the undocumented coming into the country? I asked that in a very calm way, which...
And Simon Harris is nowhere to be seen.
No, he's not anywhere there. He's nowhere there.
I love Maria Walsh's comment there. Mind yourself on the curb. We don't want to hurt you.
We don't want to hurt you. Yeah, exactly. Thanks very much, Maria. So listen, that people can make up their own minds whether my behaviour there was pure thuggery or not. But I definitely don't believe it was. And Gerardir got those comments. Well, actually, look, we'll come back to Gerardir in a minute. But go on, Suzanne.
Can I just say what a funny week that was, that we bumped into Roderick O'Gorman by chance, and then we bumped into these people by chance. And then later on that night, when I got back to Dublin, I was in the supermarket and Roderick O'Gorman was there in his shorts and T-shirt, informally dressed, and his face went very red when he saw me. He looks like he called the guards on me. 3 guards arrived down. I had decided not to go anywhere near him because I don't want them to... they might think I'm following him because I bumped into him twice in a week. So yeah, I left him alone, but 3 guards arrived very quickly. Shame they don't arrive so quickly when you need them.
Absolutely, really yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We just happen to bump into these people without even trying. It's as if we're meant to be doing it.
Or guided in some way.
Yeah. But just with Gerardir, actually, maybe I'll just comment at this point about him. There's a couple of things to say. Obviously, I mean, tell us a little bit about the phone call you had. Did it sound like he was a little bit pally with the journalist in question? Just give us a little insight into that phone call that you had with the journalist.
Well, the journalist seemed very sure that Gerardir was a reliable source and that he was of good enough character to not make the allegations up. Now, at first he said he had several witnesses, and then it was just this one witness who happens to be a sitting Fine Gael councillor, and this is 3 days out from an election, just to emphasise that. And I did say to him, you seem very sure. Are you friends with this guy? And he said, well, are you accusing me of being friends? And I said, no, I'm asking because he seemed so sure that he wouldn't make things up. And he said that he had spoken to him. He wasn't friends, but he had spoken to him 5 times in 2 years. And he took that to mean that, he could be a good enough judge of character of this person who is, has really sort of declared himself in many ways as an enemy of yours in the past. He's been recorded calling you a scumbag by a member of the public at a public event. And I said that to this journalist. And surprisingly, this journalist said that he had heard that recording and he still thought that it was, reasonable to use this person as a reliable witness for his argument. Yeah. And the journalist said, I think my facts are correct. And when I asked him why that was his answer when I asked him, why did you not give Stephen a right of reply? And he said, "I think my facts are correct."
Yeah, exactly. No, I've heard other stories. I was chatting to a fella in Ballina who supposedly contacted Jardir there some weeks ago, talking to him about the issue, the housing list. He was on it for so long, and ended up saying that he'd only be voting for me. Now, he couldn't vote for me, but he said there's only one person I'd be voting for. And Jardir volunteered, goes, "I hope you're not talking about Stephen Kerr." He said it is. And Jardir said, "Well, he's bad news. He's a dangerous fella, and stay away from that fella." So I don't know what this fella has been going around saying to people on the doors. And I'll take this opportunity actually to throw it out there. If this sitting councillor Jardir has said something negative or defamatory against me to you during his campaign, please send me a message. If you want me to keep it anonymous, I will. I can give you my word on that. But I'd love to know what sort of damage he's done to me. Now, he increased his vote by, I think, about 600 on last time round. And I had a good look at Jardir's first preferences on the day of the count. And what I thought was very interesting, that there were a huge number that had Jardir number one, and their second vote didn't go to another Fine Gael candidate. It went to Mohammed Kamal Udin for the Labour Party,
And
who
no
had
other preferences.
and no other preferences. Jardir Fine Gael number one and Kamal Udin number two. Now, look at that's simply a vote that came from the refugee centre and asylum centres. It's as simple as that. There's no
Yeah.
explanation for that. And he is very much involved in the Castlebar tidy towns. He has these people out, these poor people out every Saturday picking up rubbish from around the town, and canvassing them and getting them to canvass back in the centres for him with his leaflets. So that's how he increased his vote. He doesn't rely on the local Irish vote anymore. He can't, because he's never ever stood up against what's going on in this town.
He, it would appear, we have it from a couple of witnesses that he has spent a lot of time in the centre. He was the only candidate allowed to spend that time in the centre. I think Mr. Uden got 20 minutes, according to him, to canvass there. And Jardir is in there all the time. And probably what he has done is maybe, ingratiated himself with certain people in there who then have influence. I mean, and I'll say it again. I said it before. I don't know what is more racist than claiming, as some people have there in Castlebar, that they've given these Black African people a purpose by giving them a place on the Tidy Towns Committee, picking up people's rubbish. Right. How racist is that? Like this little white savior complex, and we're supposed to be the racist ones.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But he got 600 extra votes, and we know at least 1,000 people were signed up in the Castlebar area, IPAS residents and refugees.
Well, I didn't go through the full supplementary electoral register, but what I did go through is the supplementary lists for Brafey and for the Castlebar urban and rural areas. Now, the Castlebar LEA is much bigger than that, but I know in those areas I looked at, you'd have the centres down at Brafey and you'd have the one in the Money Retail Business Park, and there were a total of 511 names on that, all foreign names attributed to the Events and Sports Centre, the Woods Hotel, which is the refugee. Well, it was a refugee centre. Now it's a mix of it's not just Ukrainian refugees in there now. It's asylum seekers and it's people from everywhere. It's not just Ukrainians. But anyway, look, we're going to come back. Yeah, go on. We're going to come back to that in a little while again.
Just to emphasise, like that's just one part of your electoral area.
Yeah,
so 511 people registered, IPAS residents and refugees.
I'm guessing, without looking at the rest of the lists, and I will get the rest of the supplementary lists for the rest of the Castlebar LEA. I'd say in and around 1,000 votes there.
And he gets 600 extra votes on last time.
Yes, indeed. And there's plenty of people who told me at the door, like, they wouldn't be voting for Fine Gael, which they had done all their life, and they wouldn't be voting for Jardir. So I don't know where he got his votes. Well, I do actually. I have a good idea.
And he's going around telling people that you kick people in the shins.
Oh, actually, yeah. Now that we're talking about Jardir and we're talking about some of the write-ups in the papers, like the relationship, you've mentioned the relationship between that journalist that wrote that piece in the Mail News and Jardir. I was chatting to another fellow there in town the other day who is a journalist who writes for who writes for a couple of different papers, actually, just freelance. And he is very pally with two councillors, with Al McDonald and with Blackie Gavin. Like, he told me that before. He'd be very pally with them. He'd be very friendly. And Gerardir came up in conversation when I bumped into him the last day. And he goes, but is it true? Is it true that you do kick people in the shins when you're doing that with when you're video
That's
recording them?
crazy.
And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, honestly, no, just tell me, like, is it true? And he told him that Gerardir told him this, that I kick people in the shins. This is something that I do.
Like,
Like,
who would believe that?
yeah, I mean, if I
That's
am
so
kicking people in the
ridiculous.
shins, you'd imagine I would have been, called out for at this stage. I'd be up. There'd be a complaint gone in. There'd be some CCTV or
Yeah.
something.
Somebody would have accused you of assault. And for
Yeah.
people who want to know what Gerardir looks like, he was, acting as a bodyguard there for Helen McEntee, I think, I think it was Helen McEntee. He was kind of there with his little vote Gerardir #1 vest, like a kind of a cycling vest type thing.
He is a cycler, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, look at where are we going to go next? Yeah, okay. So basically, that didn't help me. That Mayo News article didn't help me, and Gerardir's defamatory comments about me in the paper, and I'm sure around the whole town, around the whole Castlebar area, didn't help me. But another thing that didn't help me and didn't help you either, or any of the kind of Irish nationalist candidates, was the fact that, as we just mentioned there, all the refugees and asylum seekers, many of whom, by the way, are illegal economic migrants that were eligible to vote. And if I can just bring up this here, now we showed this slide before. The Irish Refugee Advisory Board urges refugees and asylum seekers to make their voices heard in the local elections. So this campaign has been going on now for a number of months anyway, I'm sure. Another little quick slide here. This is from a Twitter page, Abolish Direct Provision campaign. 9,000 refugees in direct provision centres registered to vote in the local elections.
Yeah. And I have a couple as well, if you want me to.
Go on.
Read them out.
Please do.
Bear with me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
We have one here from Abolish Direct Provision.
Same crowd.
Yeah, we took thousands of refugees in direct provision camps to polling stations this morning to ensure they voted correctly. The government should give them all right to remain in Ireland. So just, we really need to let that sink in there. They actually said this out loud, and this shows their, arrogance in they know they're going to get away with this election fixing, that they will say this out loud to make sure they voted correctly. So they influenced the vote of these people, a lot of whom, of course, wouldn't even be able to speak English. I don't know how you're supposed to vote in an election if you don't speak English. And there's one here from Massey, which is Movement of Asylum Seekers, an NGO which receives taxpayer funding. South Dublin County Partnership has arranged transport for asylum seekers to go out and vote. And our advice is to leave racists blank on the ballot. Isn't that nice? We have one more.
Well, yeah, by all means, do leave racists blank on the ballot.
Yeah,
but I'm sure who are the racists they're talking about? They're obviously talking about the likes of us that are trying to stick up for our country. Nobody can ever point out anything racist I've said, and I've been doing this for a while now. They call all these names, but give us some proof. Show me something I've said.
Yeah. I mean, they can try and say something we've said is racist, but as I said, with the there's a lot of things they actually do which is racist, like this whole thing, this white savior complex they have. So the last one I have is Abolish Direct Provision. Thank you to People Before Profit and Sinn Féin Ireland, who came to our weekly meetings to share about their party policies before thousands of refugees in direct provision voted today. Isn't that nice? I wonder, did they let all candidates in or encourage all candidates in? And if we had have gone and said, okay, we would like to come in here and tell these people about our policies, would we have been allowed? And I bet they
Mm.
had interpreters too. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you can be sure.
And what kind of things do you think they would have said? Because I think what they would have said is potentially, and they would have given the impression, if you vote for us, we'll, maybe get you, we could kind of work towards getting you housed, that kind of thing. And if you don't vote for us and you vote for the other crowds or the other independents, the racists, the so-called racists, they'll want to send you home. I'm pretty sure that's probably how this went. You don't need to be a fly on the wall to know that.
Yeah, obviously they wouldn't know how people voted, but they could definitely, as you say, incentivize them to go to the polling station, or if they didn't go, maybe say, look, we know if you didn't go, and if you don't go, there might be some repercussions, like
Yeah.
um,
Coercion and all of that.
yeah. Now I think I did hear in some places there were blank polling cards, like with no mark and no tick put in them at all. I just thought that was very strange. I don't know how you explain that.
I wonder, yeah, was that like either a protest vote or maybe some of these people didn't know what to put down? I think someone did say to me who was at the polling centre in Ballsbridge that they had seen some of my ballot where my name had been chosen, but people had only they had put an X through like my name and maybe one other person, so the votes were invalid.
Mm,
And I think, for the next time around, we've all got a lot to learn about making sure people know how to vote, um, making sure people are registered, and making sure people actually get out and vote. Like, as I said, only 6,000 people in Blanchardstown came out to vote. So to me, that indicates severe disillusionment. And there's a lot of manipulation by the press in that regard as well, because there was an article about South Tala region there and how few people get out and vote, and there was all these kind of depressing quotes from locals about how there's just no point in voting, nothing ever changes.
mm.
And that's a kind of to me, that's a psychological thing to make people go, oh sure, I won't bother because nobody else is.
Right, and look, you mentioned people before profit there, and they were very much involved in trying to get these new migrants out to vote. Now, I want to give a special shout out to my old buddy Joe Daly. Unfortunately, Joe only picked up 246 votes this time around. Um, and he had a little accident as well. I believe he fell off his tricycle at one point when he was canvassing,
His
or his
tricycle.
bicycle. Sorry, his bicycle, and he he bloodied his nose. So sorry to
Um,
say, Joe's an old school buddy of mine. He likes to have a pop at me online.
he
So
does, he
better
does.
luck next time, Joe. Maybe in the
I,
general election.
I believe you had a couple of spoiled votes where people had voted for you, but then had put down not nice things about Joe Daly. So that was null and void. And then there was one with Gerardier where you were picked, but they chose to draw a penis or some phallic shaped object coming from Gerardier's head. So that was also spoiled. So
Yeah,
nice support there, but
nice support. I would have preferred the vote.
yeah.
Thank you. I agree with the sentiment there. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to just play this video, actually, just kind of to add to this point further that we're making here. This is Aisling O'Loughlin. She's a former reporter on TV3, and she has not taken the shilling, unlike Claire Byrne. She could have had a
Mm,
career like Claire Byrne. She could have been up there making the
yeah.
big money, like, and spouting all the bull. But no,
She's
she
very
didn't.
admirable.
She sure is, and fair play to Aisling.
There was one account there on X that really caught my attention. It's called Abolish Direct
Again,
Provision Campaign. Apparently it's voluntary. And I'm thinking, God, these guys are really going to a lot of trouble for a voluntary organization. And then I thought, I wonder who's paying them. I wonder who's paying them. But then look at this. Okay, this was from the 7th of June. Thank you, Team ADPI, for transportation, helping us to vote correctly and understanding politics
yeah,
in Ireland.
sorry,
This is one of their latest then. This is the 7th of June. We took thousands of refugees in direct provision camps to polling station
yeah.
this morning to ensure they voted correctly. The government should give all of them right to remain in Ireland.
That's the one we read. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's the one we read. So
Right.
all this work from the various NGOs, it definitely did pay off, because if I can just bring up this next slide here. Well, hey, record number of migrant candidates elected to councils. Fantastic news.
Mhm.
That is Brito and his father, Baby Perepidan. Perepidan. Father and son team, go on. Where's that? South
Tala
Dublin?
South.
Tala South.
Yeah.
There you go. And as well as that, migrant candidates have topped polls around the country as up to 25 councillors from diverse backgrounds are to be elected. 100 ran, 25 got elected. It's not a bad return.
Wow. So wow,
1 in 4,
that's
quarter, 25%. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you really, really have to be asking questions about all of this. You know, it's of course a lot of them ran with parties. I think 3/4 of them ran with parties. That's probably going to give them a little bit more of a chance in one sense, but then in another sense, you'd think it wouldn't because the parties have lost a lot of popularity. And Fianna
Yeah.
Fáil and Fine Gael might be trying to make out like they've had a really successful run of it. And the Irish Independent was asking Simon Harris there recently about his rising popularity. But I know you knocked out a Fianna Fáil sitting councillor, and I think so did I. And they didn't do as well as they're making out, and they are worried about, definitely for sure, about how the likes of us did. They wouldn't be targeting us by name if they weren't worried.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to a little bit more of the mainstream spin in a couple of minutes. But like, despite all the efforts of the state-funded NGOs and mainstream political parties and RT, obviously, there were some success stories.
Yeah.
Here's the way RT painted their headline: "How fringe and anti-immigration candidates are faring." So you can see two of those three men there. You have Malachy Steenson, he's a solicitor in Dublin. He got elected to the council, and also
Yeah.
Gavin Pepper,
Well
he's an
done,
activist there.
both
Well
of
done to
them.
both of those men. So yeah, that was great to see.
And
Within
we
this
got
article, sorry, go on, Suzanne.
sorry, also well done to the other candidates, Patrick Quinlan, and I think there's two more since
Yeah,
then.
the man today was it Tom Connolly? Is it Tom Connolly? And there was someone from the Irish Freedom Party as well.
Mhm.
Apologies, I just forget your name, lads.
Yeah,
But
sorry about that. I forget as well. Sorry. But
well
well
done.
done.
Yes, we'll have to get on to the researchers there. That fucking
Yeah. Our big team.
yeah. Now within this article here, obviously they had to have a go at us. They saw that we were doing pretty well. When was this? This is on Monday. So we had our result by this stage. But they had to have a go at us anyway, I would say. They were a little bit worried about us. Here's what they said about Suzanne. In the final days of the campaign, Miss Delaney, who's associated with an anti-vaccine, anti-migration website, the Irish Inquiry, thanks very much, was recorded on video by someone she knew, that's me, as she followed Green Party Minister Roderick O'Gorman down Blanchardstown Main Street making comments. Yeah, well, yeah,
I wasn't making comments. I was asking
no,
legitimate questions.
yeah, and why don't they don't bother mention that. We'll show that in a minute. We'll
And
show
we're not
exactly what you were asking.
anti-migration. There's a big difference between being anti-migration and being against illegal immigration that has been
Yeah,
facilitated by the state. They talk about the government's that we're against the government's immigration policy, but their official policies are ones they're going against themselves. They're not following their own official policies. They're not following the law themselves. They're allowing illegal immigrants in. And as for anti-vaccine, like, can you say like anti-vaccine if someone just didn't want the COVID mRNA shot, which wasn't
mhm,
a legitimate traditional vaccine in any sense of
yeah,
the word whatsoever. That's a conversation for a different day, but it
yeah.
wasn't a vaccine.
Well, look, they're still flat out pushing that the latest booster. So we only did the last bin. I know it's a few weeks ago, but we had Claire Byrne on, where basically it was just a propaganda piece where they're pushing the latest booster. No
Yeah, the
questions asked about how safe it is. Like, no mention of the fact that which one was pulled there in the last couple of weeks.
AstraZeneca pulled
Yeah,
from globally pulled from the market, and our excess deaths continue to rise in Ireland. I think they're currently standing at 18 point something percent above, when you compare that to the years previous to the so-called vaccine rollout.
yeah. No comment, no question at all by RT about that. But don't mention that. Just call us anti-vax. You know, that'll do.
It's
Sure,
just,
look,
you know what? It's a cheap shot. Like, can they
oh,
not do any better at this stage?
they're
Really?
rubbish. They're like, you know, I was going to call them lazy journalists. They're well below lazy. Finishing off there, they said Miss Delaney appears to believe there is a hidden state conspiracy to kidnap and or disappear children. She received first preference votes from 388 people in the remarkably tightly contested ward. Well done, Suzanne.
Uh, they,
Brilliant.
they did go on to comment that I was only 300 short of the highest number of votes. So there was, you know, at least they mentioned that. But we've already covered this hidden state conspiracy to kidnap or disappear children thing in a previous video. I have never, ever, ever said that. And it's very interesting that they're saying that. Why are they bringing up these words? You know, state conspiracy, kidnapping, vanishing, you know, making that connection between the state and these things. They're the only ones who have made that connection. You know, 1 in 8 migrant children is going missing in the state, as reported by extra.ie, who say that they are likely being sold into sexual exploitation. There's numerous official statistics and mainstream media reports about missing children. I have not peddled any conspiracy here, criminal conspiracy, perhaps. You know, there's definitely criminal gangs. You know, we've taken in a lot of people from Ukraine, and it's a fact to say that Ukraine has the highest rate of child trafficking in Europe. And we've just said, yeah, come on in. You don't need any documents to prove that that child is yours. You know, and then nobody's checking where these children are.
Well, sure. Look, we may as well have a look at the video that they're referring to there and see what you actually did say.
You don't report on all the children that are going missing. 24 migrant children in the month of January alone. How come RT and Virgin Media don't report on those children going missing? What do you think they're going missing for? Wouldn't be sex trafficking by any chance?
Do your job, journalist. You're getting paid to do it. We're doing this for free, calling out your absolute rubbish, lies.
And a few people have commented, not many, but a few people have said, oh, well, you know, like, what are they meant to do about it? Well, they choose, like these two primetime journalists, what are their names, who targeted us in that article?
Oh, yes.
Have we got their images?
Yes, we do have them somewhere. Go on ahead there for a second.
Like, you know, these guys, all of these guys, whether they're on the TV or writing the articles or whatever they're doing, they choose to do this.
Yeah.
This is a choice. Like, if you and I wanted to, we could be working as mainstream journalists. It's like Aisling O'Loughlin. She's a perfect example. Matt Letitia, another example. People who've actually lost very influential media positions because they chose their integrity and they chose to do the right thing. So I have no sympathy for these guys. They should be I don't know if harassed is the right word, because it's not harassment to ask a question.
No,
they should be held to account. There's nothing wrong with asking a question.
Of course not. I don't have a picture of those guys to hand, but their names for anyone. They're both on Twitter, so please get on there and ask them yourselves. Jack McCarron, McCarron, and Mark Coughlin, Coughlan. So yeah, please do go and have a chat with the two boys and ask them yourselves.
And just one more thing on that. So they did a report about terrible, shocking cruelty towards horses that have been sent to the only Irish horse abattoir in the country, and quite rightly so. That was covered by RTE, and they've done a couple of good exposés in the past on crashes and you know, things like that. But they don't talk about all these missing children who we know are being sold into sex slavery. And it's not just sex slavery. There's organ harvesting going on in this country. Colm Noonan is a detective with this trafficking unit, and he has stated in the past that human trafficking is going on in every single town and village in this country. And in his words, it is in your face.
Wow.
So is he like, is that a conspiracy as well, what he has said?
Wow. So I'm looking for, I don't know if I have it here. I might have to get you to do it, Suzanne, just to read out. In the same article on RT on Monday, I don't think I have it here actually. I want you to, can you just mention there if you have it, what they said about me there?
Yeah. So they said in the Castlebar ward, independent candidate Stephen Kerr is associated with an online platform that primarily posts about immigration issues and anti-vaccine content. Leading up to polling day, Mr. Kerr posted a video on his platform alleging election interference involving a dozen and a half African people, but did not provide any evidence to support his claims.
No. Okay, so let me just explain this to the RTE journalists, the two boys that I've mentioned already. You'll get them on Twitter. So I met two people. I met one man and I got a message from another woman. These people are Brafey through and through. They've lived here. Their families have been here for generations. I'm only here 31 years. I'm only a blow in their eyes. But the first man, they both told me the exact same thing, that when they were down there voting, they saw bunches of what they said are young African men. And I said, how many? Like a dozen? More? That's the way it was put to me by the first man. And the other lady said she had seen them coming in kind of dribs and drabs, like, you know. So that was the first thing. I can take their word for it. I mean, they're local people. They're known to me. They wouldn't tell lies about that. But it's obvious anyway. Like, I mean, I'll just show you. And I put this on a video I did on the day of the election. Here's the supplementary list. Brafey Woods, Castlebar. You see the L there? That just means you're eligible to vote in the local elections. All these are foreign names. These all, to me, look like, you know, African names or Ukrainian names, like the majority of them. Here's the second page. See down along the right hand side there, apartments in the Brafey lodges, then Brafey Woods Hotel. Brafey Woods Hotel is what was the Ukrainian refugee center, but it's not just Ukrainian people in there now. It's people from the International Protection Center. It's international people in there as well. Here's the third page. Again, Brafey Woods Hotel, same thing. And then finally, here you can see Sports and Events Arena. That was a lovely big sports and events arena. It's been turned into permanent accommodation now. It's as an IPAS centre. So there's your evidence.
Want you to put up the names?
Exactly.
Do they want you to break GDPR rules and your obligations to keep the supplementary electoral register, from the public eye? These names cannot be shared,
That would have got me in trouble. Look, I've been kind of doing this for long enough, and people tell me all the things all the time, and you have to be very careful with what you put up. And as long as I've been doing it, like the Irish Inquiry since April 2020 and other platforms I've had for the last 13 years, I've never had any defamation cases against me. I've never said anything that has got me in any trouble. So obviously I'm careful and I'll research things and I'll only put up what I believe to be true, and I'll do it in a way that doesn't get me in trouble. So I can rely on those two direct testimonies I got from local Brafey people, and here's the supplementary electoral register with all these African and Ukrainian names on it. So from the Sports and Events Arena. I mean, come on, what do you want? It's obvious, RTE. Obvious, but there, the
windowless rooms.
The place with the windowless rooms that RTE don't give a damn about, and that we're the only ones highlighting it. So anyway, they had to try and blacken our names in some way or have a go at us, because we did probably better than they expected. We didn't get in. It was very close. I mean, I was in the count centre, you were with me, Suzanne, until 8 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, and we were just pipped at the post.
We were there for, they were counting for like 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah, exactly. And you did amazingly well as well. So they are probably a little bit worried about us, and therefore they have to kind of attack us in these ways.
Yeah, I said to you before the election that what my prediction was for the results was that the people who watch RTE and consume that daily would have been surprised by how well we would all do. In terms of, like, it's not just a win or lose situation. People forget that, like, it's the percentages matter. Like what a percentage you got matters. And I thought that on the other side, people like ourselves were perhaps a little bit too optimistic. And
the other thing just to mention as well is, I mean, we've been around the place, whether it's around Mayo, whether it's in Dublin, even abroad, it's happened to me. People will at this stage recognize my face from some videos, and it's beginning to happen to you now as well. But that doesn't translate. Like, there's so many people that are not online. that don't know our stuff.
Nobody knew who I was at the
Yeah.
doors. Not a single person who I called to said, "I know who you are."
Yeah. Now I did get a couple of those, but what I found interesting as well is that I could be chatting to somebody for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes at the door. I will have my flyer in their hand. I'll have introduced myself with my name. They'll see my picture. They'll see me in front of them as well. But only after chatting for 2 or 3 minutes will they say, "Oh, you're not that fella from Brafey, are you?" So like it's not obvious. My name and my face didn't come across, but they remembered videos that seen in the past, and they knew what was going on in Brafey, and they weren't happy. So I mean, all things to learn. And if we were to go again in another election, there's a general election coming up, and who knows what we'll do. But let's let them think that we're running in that. RT weren't finished with us yet, by the way. They weren't finished just yet, because on prime time, check this out.
As immigration became a focus due to real concerns about a lack of housing and stretched local services. In other areas, organised nationalist groups purposely used this election to sell a blatantly anti-immigrant and racist message.
I'm wondering, do you know?
It made the campaign intimidating at times for all canvassers, with extreme nationalists confronting senior politicians.
There you go. That's Minister Roderick O'Gorman, the man solely responsible for destroying this country. Extreme nationalists with a racist message, and then they had us up, the Irish Inquiry, Your Face. Didn't bother to add to show the questions or to let us hear what we were asking Minister O'Gorman, though.
They made sure they left in the bit at the end there where somebody shouted, "Leave him alone," as well. To kind of get a little bit more, make it seem like the public is on Roderick's side. But the person who was sitting beside that person there, he was not on his side at all. We spoke to him afterwards, and people in the comments were giving out, about the two lads shouting, "Leave him alone," but that guy didn't say anything. There was two lads across the road that just happened to be outside the place. They weren't with each other, and one of them shouted, "Leave him alone," and the other fella told him to get lost, go away. But yeah, you see that you're one at the start of this clip, and she's very serious. It's almost like it comes across almost like a comedy sketch. You just can't take these people seriously at all. But they're basically calling us anti-immigration. So they're blanketly saying that we are against all immigration with no proof of that whatsoever. They're calling us racist. It's just all they've done here. They've directed a lot of traffic our way. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And let's just actually, because they wouldn't bother showing the interaction, let's actually show what happened. Here we go, for anyone who hasn't seen it.
I'm a local election candidate for Blanchardstown, Mulhuddard, LEA. Can I have a couple of minutes of your time?
No, she's just in a rush now, I'm afraid.
I understand you're in a rush, but you understand people are not happy at the moment. I'm wondering, do you know what people might not be happy about? No comment? What do you think the number one issue is for people on the doors here or all over the country? No comment? Why are you flooding every town and village in this country with economic migrant males who are not background checked?
No comment. Minister O'Gorman, my name's Stephen Kerr. I'm an independent candidate for Mayo County Council. A couple of months ago there was a motion passed by Mayo County Council to cease cooperation with your department. There's some confusion as to whether or not that's happened. Can you confirm that Mayo County Council have ceased cooperation with your department? My village of Brafey has had its population doubled from about 1,000 to 2,000 people because of your policies, your mass immigration policies. Why did you send tweets in 6 or 7 different languages around the world inviting people to come to this country?
In Urdu, Eritrean, French, Arabic, promising people their own door accommodation within 4 months. Ministers have to be accountable to the people. Have you nothing to say?
Nope.
Are you worried about the Green Party's performance in the local elections?
Nope.
And the European elections? If the Green Party are so bothered With climate change, why are you putting up so many plastic posters with toxic chemicals all over the country?
There you go. That's Minister Roderick O'Gorman,
And
the man solely responsible for destroying this country. There you go.
leave him alone.
So that's the interaction that we had with him. RT didn't bother to show it, but we raised some very, very important points there and put some questions to him.
Yeah, in my constituency where I ran, the Green Party candidate got 90 votes. Mr. O'Gorman said in an article after that he did address us, and he said he addressed me in particular, not by name. They weren't going to give me any publicity, but he said that I wasn't part of the Tidy Towns Committee, and that's why I didn't have a hope. And I did say to you at the time, realize we are a part of a Tidy Towns Committee. It's just a different type of Tidy Towns Committee, and we're very committed to that, whether we got elected or not. And he also said that we would find the results quite shocking when we didn't get in, and we weren't. I wasn't shocked. I knew that I didn't put in, that I would have liked to put in more work. I definitely would have if I could have, but I have a little girl and stuff, and I'm a single parent, and I didn't have a lot of help. So I wasn't shocked or anything like that. But he seemed to know how everything was going to turn out.
Yeah. And as you said there, we're not part of your Tidy Towns Committee, but we're part of our own Tidy Towns Committee, and we are very committed, and we will always be part of this Tidy Town Committee, whether we get elected or not. This is what we do because we love our country, and we don't need to get paid for doing what we do. So I just want to mention, just before we finish up here, that's pretty much all the election spin. Now there's going to be in the general election coming, who knows when. A lot of people are saying November. And we are very much considering that based on how we did this time around with a very short campaign and not much resources or finances. If people would, first of all, it's very important to say people need to register to vote. The amount of people that said to us on the doors that they weren't registered to vote and they'd love to vote for us, but it's too late. Do it now. Just do it now and get it done, because we really need all those votes come general election time.
It's a couple of minutes.
Yeah, exactly. What's the name of the website?
Check the register.
Check the register.
Check
the register.ie. Check the register.ie. It's very simple. And as well as that, check out Suzanne's website. It's SuzanneDelaney.ie. SuzanneDelaney.ie. And get in touch there if you're in her area and you'd be interested in getting involved in her next campaign. And same with myself. My website is stephenkerr.ie as well. There are election websites. Otherwise, you can get in touch with us on any of our social media at Irish Inquiry, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Not so much. I don't check the messages as much as I should on Instagram, but Facebook and especially Twitter, if you're on Twitter.
It's hard to find the time. We do a lot behind the scenes that maybe sometimes people don't realise.
So listen, that's all the spin. Unless there's anything else you want to add, Suzanne, we focus just on the election and mostly kind of on the spin relating to us. But we'll hopefully be back next week with a regular spin bin show.
Yeah, and just well done to not only the candidates that got in, but everybody who put their name and face out there, because it's really not particularly easy to do that. And a lot of candidates did exceptionally well, like John Waters, Derek Blyg, people like that, but everybody did well in their. I admire anybody who tried. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. So thanks everybody for watching tonight. Thanks to everybody again for getting involved in our campaign. And we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.